For those of you that celebrate Christmas, you probably look back on all the memories created through celebrating this wonderful holiday, especially to the ones from your childhood. I know as I've gotten older, the fondness that I have for those childhood memories and those earlier Christmases just grow and grow and grow. Especially spending all the time with my siblings and showing off each other's gifts and the amount of work that mom and dad put into making all of our Christmases special. Those are memories that I cherish and ones that become more and more cherished as I get older. And, it's one of the reasons why a movie like A Christmas Story is so universally appealing, because the entire movie is essentially this guy reminiscing about a cherished Christmas from his childhood, one that he called, the Christmas where he got the greatest Christmas gift he would ever receive. And that type of stuff really sticks with you as you grow up and get older. And in particular, I do have this one Christmas that I want to talk about here and spend time, sharing in the holiday joy and holiday memories with all of you. And that was the Christmas of 1989. I was 4 years old, going on 5. I was going to turn 5 in a few months. And that one, of a lot of the childhood Christmases, that one really sticks out to me. And the main reason it sticks out to me is the presents that we received. Now, in my family, it has always been and probably always will be a tradition to give each other movies. Back then, it was VHS tapes. As we got older and technology became more sophisticated, it would be DVDs and Blu-rays and even gift cards to buy stuff digitally and that type of stuff. And, gift cards to sign up for streaming services and things like that. But gifting movies has been a very popular thing to do in my family. Sometimes with very obvious selections. I got many a Godzilla movie for Christmas. Other times they would, like my parents in particular, would just give us random tapes that they think they might like. So they would just stick it in our stockings. I remember one Christmas I got The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, not the BBC live action one, but the animated one where the animation quality looks very, very cruddy, but the voice acting I remember being really good. So that was the appeal of that one. But every once in a while you get random tapes like that. And the Christmas of '89 stands out to me because of the tapes and the VHSs that we got between the four of us, me and my 3 siblings. And I'm going to share in some of those memories here because this particular Christmas, it's the earliest one that I have memories of. And, looking back on my life, I don't remember a whole heck of a lot before then, but I do have memories of this Christmas. For one thing, it was the year that my dad obviously did this. He wrote a message from Santa Claus on my oldest brother's chalkboard. He had a little chalkboard in his room, and he wrote a little message from Santa Claus saying, "Thank you for the milk and cookies and stuff." And as a kid, I was just going nuts for that. I'm like, yeah, Santa was here. And of course my dad did it, but it was still a special memory. And I also remember this was the first year I was gifted a lot of Ninja Turtles stuff. So my parents, they would put, back then when we were younger, they would just put our stocking on our bed while we were sleeping. We would wake up and the gifts were all there. And that was like, oh my God, Santa was here. As we got older, we weren't as heavy sleepers. So they, put them all in another room. But this was still at the point where they were putting the stockings in our bedrooms. And I woke up that morning, and there were a lot of Ninja Turtle figures from those early waves of figures in my stocking. And this was the beginnings of my fandom of becoming a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan. But this Christmas also sticks out to me because of all 4 of us got gifted a bunch of VHS tapes that stick out to me and stand out as very special memories. Now, I don't remember exactly who got exactly what tape. There's one that I know I got, one that I know my oldest brother got, and one that my sister definitely got, but I don't remember exactly all of the tapes and who got what. But what we ended up doing is that we saw the tapes that we got, and we were so excited about them that we went downstairs to the big TV, and we had like a bit of a big movie day to watch all of our gifts. And that was the only time we ever really did that. I don't remember us doing that, even though there were some Christmases where we got like a ton of DVDs and things like that. We never like went down into the basement and had like this group like movie day thing to watch all of the gifts that we had received. So this was the only time I remember us doing that. And these tapes in particular are pretty special and share a special place in my mind and in my heart, especially as all those nostalgic feelings of Christmas come to mind. The first video I'm going to talk about is the one that I have the least memories of, and that is Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer, which is obviously the tape that my sister received, because I don't think any of us boys had any interest in Rainbow Bright, but we did end up watching it as part of our little movie day thing just to keep our sister happy. Because it was like, I got to be fair, and we all got one pick, so it ended up working out. But I don't remember a whole heck of a lot about the movie. I did rewatch it years and years later, and I kind of appreciated it for how weird it was and how strangely dark it is. But yeah, this was my sister's pick. I remember a lot of colors. I remember horses, which was relevant to her interests at the time. And I remember Murky and Lurky. They were about the most memorable thing in the whole movie to me. But other than that, I don't have a whole heck of a lot to say about this movie. The next tape I want to talk about is one that we all universally agreed on. And this is one, I don't remember who received this one. I don't remember which one of us, because this feels like one that would have been appealing to any one of the four kids. And that is The Flintstones Meet the Jetsons, which might be my introduction to the concept of a crossover. Like, I never knew what a crossover was until I saw this movie. Now it's commonplace, especially if you go into the world of comics and, modern media. It's all about crossing over things. I mean, Marvel built a whole platform on it. So but this was like a really novel idea that the Flintstones and the Jetsons would be in a story together. And if as young kids and as fan of both cartoon shows, that was pretty amazing to see, especially back then. Now, I know that this movie was part of something called the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10, which was where Hanna-Barbera did 10 made-for-TV animated movies featuring their major characters. I think there were like 3 Scooby-Doo movies and 3 Yogi Bear movies, and there was a Huckleberry Hound movie, which is a sentence I never thought I would ever say. There was a Top Cat movie, which again, another sentence I never thought I would ever say. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. There was a Judy Jetson movie, which, okay, sure. That's interesting subject, but sure, why not? But yeah, and this movie was part of that Superstars 10 that they did. And this is probably the most famous movie to come out of that set, I would think. Maybe, I don't know, is anybody a huge fan of Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School? I don't know. Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, is anybody a huge fan of that one? I don't know. But this one seems to be the one that everybody remembers, especially since The Simpsons made fun of it when they did their own cartoon crossover with The Critic.
Coming up next, the Flintstones meet the Jetsons.
Uh-oh, I smell another cheap cartoon crossover.
And, but, some people may see it as cheap marketing to put the two families together, but to me, it's kind of a no-brainer, because you have because the Simpsons and the Flintstones the Jetsons and the Flintstones basically, tackled the same ideas of like, hey, let's do the Modern Family, but in a different time period, either the far off past or the way off future. And there are a lot of similarities between the two shows in that regard. So mixing the two families together was actually very appealing, especially putting the Jetsons in the past where they're fish out of the water, and putting the Flintstones in the future where their fish is out of water. So the whole concept, I thought, worked really well, and especially as a kid, I was thoroughly entertained by all of this. My favorite character in the Jetsons was Mr. Spacely. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying Jetsons all of a sudden, but Mr. Spacely was my favorite character in the Jetsons. So to see him try to monetize the Flintstones and the Rubbles was really funny to me. And that was probably my favorite character interaction in the entire thing, especially as a kid. Because of the two shows, I did prefer the Flintstones because I liked Fred and Barney so much. I also ate their cereal pretty consistently back then. And yeah, I just thought the movie was a lot of fun. And again, if you were a kid back then, this probably blew a lot of kids' minds, because I know it did for me. Like seeing the two families together was pretty amazing, and it ended up working pretty well as far as crossovers go, and they kind of maximize the potential out of getting two sets of characters together and getting making sure that they were all in both settings and all that junk. And of course, the time travel element, Elroy invented a time machine, which I'm like, okay, sure, it's about as logical as anything else in cartoons at that time, so why not? But I do remember it being a lot of fun, and that was the one, like I said, that was the movie where all four of us kids enjoyed it and really wanted to see it, because I don't think any of us knew that it existed until we got this tape for Christmas. So we were all excited to see it. It's like, oh my God, this must be amazing. So when you're 4 years old, like I was back then, something like this was monumental, and it was very cool to see. And all four Kelly children thoroughly enjoyed this film. The next movie that I'm going to talk about is one that we did not watch on Christmas Day, thank God, because it would have ruined my Christmas. Transformers the movie. And I know this is one that my oldest brother got because he was the big Transformers fan. And I was, at this point, I would have been kind of absorbing Transformers through him, which is kind of what happened with a lot of my interests. Like, he got me into He-Man, he got me into Thundercats, he got me into G.I. Joe and Transformers. I think Ninja Turtles was the first thing that was kind of my thing. And I got into more organically, but everything that came before that, that was me kind of piggybacking off of my oldest brother and kind of absorbing all of the stuff that he watched. So he would have gotten Transformers the movie. We did not watch it on Christmas Day. Again, thank God, because I would have been a blubbering mess and it would have ruined my Christmas, because even at this young age, Optimus Prime was my hero and one of my role models. So to see him die would have completely killed the mood for my Christmas. And I wouldn't have wanted to watch any other movie after that. I would have been completely depressed and despondent, and it would have been a miserable day for everybody. So thankfully, we watched that one the next day. And I think the reason we held off, and again, I'm just guessing here, basing this off of like partial memories and everything, I think it was because we had it down to either Transformers the movie or the He-Man movie. And I think my oldest brother and I ultimately decided to check out the He-Man movie because I wanted to see a live action He-Man movie. And that was one of his gifts, of course, because again, it would have been. And the 1987 Masters of the Universe film, which I've talked about before on this channel, and we did watch that on this day. And this is an interesting one. Red Letter Media has talked about the Masters of the Universe film quite a bit. And I remember Mike saying in a recent video that something felt off about the movie when it came out. And Jay, more recently, and I think in their Ninja Turtles video that they just did, made the comment that this movie felt way too late after the He-Man craze, which is absolutely true. He's absolutely right on the money on that. They were way too late getting this movie out because He-Man had pretty much already faded by this point. But I was still a fresh He-Man fan because, again, I was absorbing everything through my brother, and I watched a lot of the He-Man episodes through the VHSs that he had collected. So episodes like Diamond Ray of Disappearance and House of Shakoti and Tila's Quest, and many of the classic early episodes, Dragon Invasion. We had a bunch of those on VHS, so I was a pretty big He-Man fan, even though it had pretty much already come and gone by the time I was 4 years old. And so to see the live-action He-Man movie, that was a delight for me, and I was like, oh yeah, let's watch that, let's watch that. And to Mike's point about how something felt off about the film, as a kid, there were certain things that I was like, wait a minute, but where's Orko? And where's Trapjaw? And where's Battle Cat? Where's Prince Adam? Where's all these other things? Now, a lot of the limitations of the Masters of the Universe movie can be chalked up to they had no budget. It was Canon Films, and most of their movies were low budget anyway. So this was no different. It ended up being a pretty low budget affair. So they just did whatever they could. And if you know anything about the behind the scenes making of this film, it's a miracle that it even got finished. But even as a kid, and even with those disappointments, my big one, my two big disappointments, I wanted to see Battle Cat and I wanted to see Snake Mountain. Neither one of those things are in the movie. Snake Mountain is only mentioned in a throwaway line, where Skeletor is referred to as the master of the Lord of Snake Mountain. I watched the movie with those disappointments in mind. However, there were also things I really, really liked about the movie. And we can knock his acting all day long, and I think there's a lot to criticize about Dolph Lundgren's performance as He-Man. The main fact being that he didn't know, he was just memorizing lines in a language that he didn't understand. He was not a fully fluent English speaker at this point. I still struggle with my English. If you've been watching my videos, I'm a babbling mess sometimes, but he struggled through that performance. But I will say, as a kid, I was like, oh my God, that's He-Man. And I had that same joy of seeing He-Man that I felt when I saw the Ninja Turtles movie in theaters the very next year. And the joy of seeing the Ninja Turtles on screen, I was like, oh my God, they're there. They're right there. They're alive. They're right in front of me. That's how I felt when I saw Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, because say whatever you want about his performance, he looked the part. And the characters we did get, it was like, oh, cool, there's Tila, and oh, cool, there's Man-at-Arms, and oh, cool, there's Beastman and Evil-Lyn. So they had a little bit of an appeal. They were able to make me somewhat happy for a lot of the film, despite those disappointments that I even felt at 4 years old. It's like, where's Battle Cat and all that other stuff. They managed to overcome it with certain elements. And I think the biggest takeaway from the movie on my first viewing was that, man, I'm actually kind of scared of Skeletor. Keep in mind, I was 4 years old, but, Skeletor was my favorite character in the cartoon show, mainly because he was funny. And even back then, I liked characters who were kind of like hilariously evil and kind of enjoyed being evil. There was something weirdly appealing about that. And, but I was never afraid of Skeletor. But I was scared of him while watching this movie because Frank Langella's performance was so commanding and so intense that it made him memorable. And every time Skeletor was on screen, I paid attention because he was just very engaging and a great screen presence. It's a great actor. I mean, Frank Langella is a terrific Academy Award caliber actor, and to have him in that role was just perfect. And he, my sister and I were talking about this movie recently, and she made the comment, it's like, man, he must have broken his back carrying that movie because he is the shining star of that film. And it's absolutely true. And he's the main reason I rewatch that movie from time to time, because I just think he's great in it. I also think Meg Foster as Evil-Lyn is very, very good. For all the criticisms that Dolph Lundgren gets for his performance, I think the rest of the cast is actually pretty good. Even though his character is Dime Store Orko, I really like Billy Barty. I think he's a very charming actor, and I think that comes through even with all that ridiculous makeup that they put on him to be Gwildor. That whole speech he has with Kevin is like, there's only one of you, Kevin, only one of anybody. It's a nice speech, and it's a nice moment. And Billy Barty is a very charming actor, so it was nice to have him in that role for a character that would have been so easy to reject because it's not Orko. I thought he did very well. So even as a kid, the Masters of the Universe film, there were disappointments with it, but at the same time, I still enjoyed it because I felt like I got enough He-Man and classic He-Man elements out of it to make it a worthwhile experience. Again, at 4 years old, I was easier to please. At the end where he pulls the sword out and challenges Skeletor to that fight at the end, I remember how excited I was because it was like, yeah, he said the line, he said, I have the power. So again, I have very fond memories of that film, mainly because of the first viewing and that particular Christmas. And I revisit that movie from time to time, fully acknowledging its flaws. And it's weird. It was regarded as a complete failure and one of the worst movies ever made, which I never felt like that was deserved. I'm like, dude, I see worse movies every week than Masters of the Universe. It's not even close. Canon made much worse movies than Masters of the Universe. But, over time, it's kind of found its audience and it's become a bit of a cult classic. So there is something to the film that is appealing. And maybe it is a bunch of people like me who saw it at a really young age that kind of saw positive qualities in it where a lot of people at the time probably didn't. So there is that. Now, before I talk about the final tape that we watched, I want to talk about Family Home Entertainment, which were the home video distributors for many, 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 many of the kids' videos that I watched when I was younger. They handled all the Ninja Turtle tapes. They handled G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats. They had their fingerprints on a lot of the 80s cartoons tapes that I watched when I was younger, which um, and this is a weird thing to comment on, but the FHE logo. Now we think about like opening logos to movies and studios and things like that. Like the blue background, white Disney castle is a classic vanity logo that I think a lot of us grew up with. The Pixar bouncing lamp is a classic logo that we all know and love. I can honestly say that the Family Home Entertainment logo is the very worst logo, vanity logo I have ever seen. If you don't believe me, take a look at this. That thing is ugly. The color, the yellow clashes with all the other colors. That sound, I don't even know what they were going for with that sound, but it sounds obnoxious, almost evil. Like it sounds like some kind of satanic ritual is being performed in this thing. It is a bizarre, and I don't know, it is such a strange and bizarre logo. I don't know who looked at that and said, yeah, that should be our company logo that we put in front of every video that we release. And I saw that logo a lot because like I said, it was in front of all the Thundercat tapes. It was in front of the Transformer tapes, the G.I. Joe tapes, so many of them. And I even when I was young, that thing freaked me out because it's like, why is it like this? Why? Who thought this looked good? I don't understand. It was baffling, but there were cool elements because they would always have trailers and previews for all of their other tapes. So if you bought a Transformer tape, there would be a highlight reel of other Transformer tapes in the collection, so you knew which tapes to look for when you went to the video store next time. And some of those trailers that they would have were actually pretty cool, and again made hunting down the tapes pretty a lot simpler. So this example I'm going to show you right here is actually the list of previews from the FHE release of Transformers the movie, and it was played right after the movie. They would typically stick these things at the end. So take a look at this, and this was fairly typical of things that you would see in the FHE home video releases.
They're stealing the energy disc! Stop them! We have what we came for! Constructicons, transform! You will be terminated! We return to our master, Megatron!
The Constructicons joined forces with Megatron to wage an all-out war for control of Cybertron.
This device will enable me to strike at the Autobots through Optimus Prime's only weakness, his overdeveloped sense of honor.
Megatron challenges Optimus Prime to a one-on-one duel.
The loser must exile himself and his army to deep space for eternity. The winner may stay where he chooses.
He secretly attains all the Decepticons' energy.
The strength transfer is a success. I now possess all your powers, in addition to my own.
Megatron's heavy artillery defeats his enemy.
Optimus, can you transform?
I'll try.
Autobots, roll out!
Perhaps for the last time.
Is it the end for Optimus Prime and his Autobots?
Prepare to meet your doom.
Transformers, Heavy Metal War.
Megatron is no more! I now lead the Decepticons.
Thinking Megatron has met his demise, Decepticon Starscream escapes with the scientist who holds the secret to the power source, an explosive form of ultimate energy.
When I flip this switch, it will begin building power to infinite capacity.
Will Megatron and Optimus be able to disconnect the deadly device before the entire universe is destroyed?
You will be the only member of your species to survive the end of your world.
It's a race against time in Transformers. Countdown to extinction.
This is no illusion, Autobot. Prepare for termination.
Megatron tries to team up with the Insecticons to keep the Autobots at bay while stealing valuable energy in a plague of Insecticons. Transformers, Volume 12.
So like I said, there's a lot of, I have a lot of special memories of Family Home Entertainment and the tapes that they released, but god damn, that logo was so hideous. But anyway, I bring them up because the final tape I'm going to be talking about is one that they released, and that is my very first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles videotape. And it was this one right here. The Shredder is Splintered, or The Shredder and Splintered. The title of that episode was always very weird to me. It felt like there was some kind of a typo. And I feel like the title was supposed to be The Shredder is Splintered, but something got lost in translation and the title just ended up weird and grammatically incorrect. But I bring this tape up because it is my earliest memory of watching the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. And on this tape, it includes what is essentially the season 1 finale, which completes the story arc of season 1, which was a 5-part miniseries, and the season 2 premiere, The Return of the Shredder, which gets the story rolling for season 2 with bringing the Shredder back, bringing Baxter Stockman back, doing the Crooked Ninja Turtle gang, which made that episode stand out as a unique one among the entire series. And basically, this was my introduction to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series. And like I said, I got a few Ninja Turtle toys in my stocking that year, so I got my crash course in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles this year. And watching that first episode in particular, The Shredder is Splintered. I'm just going to keep calling it that because that title sounds better. This episode was one of those like love at first sight things where I saw this thing and I was like, I have to watch this show. This show is amazing. The heroes are giant green mutants, which appeals to me because I've always had this weird thing where I like non-human characters more than human characters. It's part of the reason why I love Godzilla so much. Some of my favorite superheroes as kids is like, screw, forget Superman. I like the Hulk. And like, forget, forget the Flash. I like Swamp Thing. And like Justice League, who needs Justice League? I like Justice League Dark. And that's kind of what my mindset was. Street Fighter, like who wants to play Ryu and Ken when you've got Blanca to play? That was always my mindset. So the Turtles were immediately appealing to me right off the bat. And Donatello became my favorite because he made the turtle blimp in this episode and gets to save the day. And I'm like, okay, I like the tech guy. He's the smart one. I like it. You had Bebop and Rocksteady, who have never been more threatening than they are in this episode. For two that went on to become like synonymous with bumbling henchmen, they are absolutely intimidating in this episode and left a huge, great first impression on me. And I've never given up on my love of Bebop and Rocksteady, even though they became complete and utter clowns after this. They were so intimidating that first time that I saw them that they became instantly memorable to me because of it. You had the Shredder fighting a giant rat in a big one-on-one showdown that felt like it had some history. Because again, there were 4 episodes that preceded this and I hadn't seen those. So I didn't know the full story yet, but it felt like this was a big deal that Shredder and Splinter were having this big fight with each other. And you had the guy who ultimately became my favorite character in the show, Krang, a giant brain living inside this Frankenstein-style android body that became a giant monster. I like kaijus. What can I say? And to have that in this episode, I was like, this show has everything. And you combine all that with the amazing music and the amazing animated intro and all this other great stuff and the action and all the craziness that the show provided. I was absolutely in love with the show just from that first episode. And I'll never forget watching this episode on the big TV downstairs and just having my mind blown at everything that was happening. Because this episode, it's just constantly moving from one cool thing to another. It's like, oh, hey, there are rock soldiers in this too. And it's like, oh, hey, did you know that they have robot soldiers that are dressed like ninjas, and the Ninja Turtles have to fight them, but the robot soldiers have guns? And I'm like, what? Why is there so much awesome in this? I can't handle how much awesome there is. So I became a massive Ninja Turtles fan on this Christmas, and that's one of my major takeaways from this, because of the gifts that I had received, and specifically because of that videotape. I became a diehard Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan from that day forward, and I'm still a fan to this day. I eventually got into the Mirage comics. I saw the first movie the next year. It was my first movie theater experience, a memory that I will cherish for the rest of my life. And I think I've seen all the Ninja Turtle movies in theaters. Most of them. I didn't see the Michael Bay ones, but do those count? I don't know. But in any case, I've watched the 80s show, the 2002 show, and the Nickelodeon show all in their entirety, because I just love the property so much. And it all started on this Christmas Day, 1989, with my siblings by my side. We all fell in love with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And again, it was one of those things where we all kind of fell in love with it. It wasn't just me. And the interesting thing that came out of it is that we all picked a favorite turtle. Mine was Donnie. My oldest brother's was Leo. My second oldest brother, his was Mikey, and my sister's favorite was Raph. And it's weird because all the turtles kind of matched our personalities a little bit. Like, I'm like Donnie because I like to be I'm not super smart, but I like to be left in my room and kind of tinker around and work on some kind of project in, some kind of privacy. And, whenever somebody needs help with something, I'm the one that people would call. So I was kind of the Donatello of the group. Kathleen, my sister, by her own admission, is a sarcastic bitch. So Raphael was her favorite. My second oldest brother, Andrew, who's no longer with us, was a wonderful, happy-go-lucky guy. So naturally, Michelangelo was his favorite. And my oldest brother, Boomer, being the oldest, he liked being the leader of all of us lunkheads, so he was Leonardo. So, and I remember my dad asked me this question years later. He's like, okay, so did you pick those turtles as your favorite because they matched your personalities? Or did you pick the turtles as your favorite and then adapted and took on their personalities? How did that work? Was it a chicken or the egg thing? Like, how did that work? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell you. I have no answer. It's just the cards, everything played out the way it was supposed to. That was the hand that we were all dealt. Those were the cards that were dealt to us. It just played out that way. I can't speak to whether or not I had molded my personality after Donnie, or if I liked Donnie because he was already like me. I couldn't tell you, but in any case, that was one of those special things that I remember from this particular Christmas. And like I said, it's the Christmas that I have the earliest memories of. So that kind of makes it a little bit more special in my mind. And like I said, it was the only time that I remember us ever doing that, like taking all the movies that we had received as gifts and then having a big, like, kind of movie day and watching them all in the basement together. So again, thank God we did not watch Transformers the movie, because that would have completely killed the mood. But everything else we watched was delightful and a lot of fun. And it's a cherished holiday memory that I will always remember for the rest of my life. So what are some of your special Christmas memories? Post them in the comments down below. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing what other stories are out there. And I hope you all have a wonderful Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. But that is all for me. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you all later.